It was a warm evening in Oakland when I first laid eyes on Sarah. The air was crisp and inviting as I made my way to a local community event, my mind preoccupied with the tasks awaiting me at my software engineering job the following day. Little did I know that this chance encounter would set the course of my life on an entirely new trajectory. As I mingled with the other attendees, my gaze was suddenly drawn to a woman across the room. Her vibrant smile and captivating hazel eyes immediately captivated me, and I felt a strange magnetism pulling me in her direction. Mustering my courage, I approached her, and we were introduced by a mutual friend. "Hi, I'm Mark," I said, extending my hand. "It's so nice to meet you, Mark." "I'm Sarah," she responded, her voice warm and melodic. We began to talk, and I was instantly struck by her passion and enthusiasm. Sarah was a high school teacher, dedicated to inspiring her students and making a positive impact on their lives. As an engineer, my work was often focused on the technical aspects of software development, but listening to Sarah speak about her profession ignited a newfound appreciation for the profound influence educators can have. Time seemed to stand still as we continued our conversation, sharing stories and laughing together. I found myself drawn to Sarah's infectious energy and her ability to make me feel completely at ease. There was a natural rapport between us, a connection that I had never experienced before. As the event drew to a close, I knew I couldn't let this moment slip away. Mustering my courage once more, I asked Sarah if she would be open to getting coffee with me sometime. To my delight, she readily agreed, and we exchanged contact information, both of us grinning like giddy teenagers. Walking back to my car, I couldn't help but replay the evening's events in my mind. Sarah had captured my attention in a way that no one else had, and I found myself eagerly anticipating our next encounter. Little did I know that this chance meeting would set in motion a series of events that would forever change the course of my life. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I found ourselves drawn to each other in a way I had never experienced before. What started as a chance encounter quickly blossomed into a burgeoning romance, and I found myself eagerly anticipating every moment we spent together. We would often meet for coffee, our conversations flowing effortlessly as we discussed our passions, our dreams, and the challenges we faced in our respective careers. Sarah's enthusiasm and empathy were truly captivating, and I found myself opening up to her in a way I had never done with anyone else. One evening, as we strolled hand in hand through a local park, the warmth of Sarah's touch sent a thrill through me. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. "This is so peaceful," Sarah said, her voice soft and contemplative. "I love coming here to clear my mind." "I can see why," replied, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "It's the perfect place to escape the hustle and bustle of the city." Sarah's expression suddenly became more pensive, and I could sense a hint of concern in her eyes. "Mark, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about," she said, her brow furrowing slightly. "What is it, Sarah?" I asked, my heart rate quickening. "It's about my best friend, Lisa," she began. "She's been going through a really difficult time in her marriage to Brian. They've been arguing a lot, and I can tell it's taking a toll on her." I listened intently, my mind trying to process the implications of what Sarah was telling me. "I've been trying to be there for her, but it's been hard," Sarah continued, her voice tinged with worry. "Just hope that everything works out for them, you know." Reaching out, I gently placed my hand on her shoulder, hoping to provide some comfort. "I'm sure it must be tough, seeing your friend go through that," I said, "but I'm here for you, Sarah, no matter what. You can always count on me." She gifted me with a small, grateful smile, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you, Mark," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I'd do without you." In that moment, I knew that my feelings for Sarah had grown deeper than I ever could have imagined. I wanted nothing more than to be there for her, to support her through the challenges she faced, and to build a future together. As we continued our stroll, the weight of Lisa and Brian's marital troubles hung in the air, a reminder that the path ahead might not be an easy one. But with Sarah by my side, I felt a sense of hope and determination that we could weather any storm that came our way. The next few months were a whirlwind of happiness and contentment as Sarah and I continued to build our relationship. We had grown closer than I ever thought possible, and we had even started discussing the possibility of taking the next step and moving in together. The future had never looked brighter. One evening, as we were attending a local charity gala, the course of our lives took an unexpected turn. As we mingled with the other guests, I noticed Sarah's expression suddenly shift, her eyes widening with a hint of trepidation. "What's wrong, Sarah?" I asked, gently placing my hand on the small of her back. "It's Lisa and Brian," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're here." Sure enough, as I followed her gaze, I spotted her best friend and Sarah's husband standing across the room. The air instantly became thick with tension, and I could feel the unease radiating from Sarah. "Hey, Sarah," Lisa said, approaching us with a forced smile. "It's so good to see you." "Lisa, Brian," Sarah responded, her tone polite but guarded. "What a surprise to see you both here." I offered a nod of acknowledgement, but I couldn't help but notice the way Brian's eyes seemed to linger on Sarah, a flash of something I couldn't quite place flickering across his features. "We're just here to support the cause," Brian chimed in, his voice betraying a hint of awkwardness. "It's been a while since we've all gotten together." The conversation that followed was strained, with Sarah and I doing our best to maintain a semblance of civility. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, and I made a mental note to keep a closer eye on the situation. As the night wore on, I couldn't help but observe the subtle interactions between Brian and Sarah, the way he would occasionally steal glances in her direction, the way his body language seemed to shift when she was near. It all set off alarm bells in my mind. I knew I needed to confront this unease, but I also didn't want to jump to any conclusions. After all, Sarah and I had built a strong, trusting relationship, and I trusted her implicitly. Still, the nagging feeling that something was not quite right refused to leave me. As we said our goodbyes and made our way back to the car, Sarah's usually vibrant demeanor seemed subdued. I reached out and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Are you okay, Sarah?" asked, concern etched in my voice. She turned to me, her eyes reflecting a mixture of worry and uncertainty. "I'm not sure, Mark," she replied. "I just can't shake this feeling that something is wrong. I'm worried about Lisa. And now this, I just don't know what to think." Pulled her into a comforting embrace, determined to be the rock she could lean on during this turbulent time. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together," I said, my voice low and soothing. "I'm here for you, Sarah, no matter what." As we drove home, the weight of the evening's events hung heavy in the air, leaving me with a growing sense of unease. Couldn't help but wonder what the future held, and whether the cracks in Lisa and Brian's marriage would somehow find a way to impact the life Sarah and I had so carefully built. The weeks that followed our chance encounter with Lisa and Brian at the charity gala were filled with a growing sense of unease. Sarah had become increasingly distant, and I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that my concerns about Brian's behavior were justified. One evening, as I was using Sarah's laptop to check on a work-related email, accidentally stumbled upon a series of messages that would shatter the fragile trust we had built. Scrolling through the emails, my blood ran cold as I pieced together the damning evidence of an affair between Brian and Lisa. The depth of their betrayal was staggering, and I felt a wave of devastation wash over me. No, this can't be happening, I muttered under my breath, my hands trembling as I continued to read the incriminating messages. I knew I had to confront them, but the thought of doing so filled me with a sense of dread. How could I break this news to Sarah, knowing how deeply it would hurt her? And what would the consequences be for our own relationship? Closing the laptop, I sat in stunned silence, my mind racing with a million scenarios. I had to find a way to make sense of this mess, but the path forward was far from clear. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the sound of the front door opening, and Sarah's voice calling out to me. "Mark, are you home?" she asked, her tone laced with concern. I steeled myself, knowing that I couldn't keep this from her any longer. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She must have sensed the gravity in my words because her expression immediately shifted, a look of worry etching across her features. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing. Taking a deep breath, I met her gaze, the words tumbling out in a rush. I found something on your laptop. Something about Brian and Lisa." I paused, my throat tight with emotion. "Sarah, they're having an affair." The color drained from her face, and I watched as a range of emotions flickered across her expression: disbelief, hurt, and eventually, deep, profound sadness. "No, that can't be true," she said, her voice trembling. "They wouldn't do that to me, to us." I reached out, taking her hand in mine, hoping to provide some comfort, even as I knew that the news I had delivered would shatter her world. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," I said, my heart breaking for her. "I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you this." She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, before finally collapsing into my arms, her body racked with sobs. In that moment, I vowed to do whatever it took to support her through this devastating revelation. The trust we had built together was now in jeopardy, and I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with pain and uncertainty. But with Sarah by my side, I was determined to find a way to weather the storm, no matter the cost. The days that followed the discovery of Brian and Lisa's affair were some of the most emotionally turbulent I had ever experienced. Sarah was devastated, her trust shattered, and I struggled to find the right words to comfort her during this trying time. One evening, as Sarah and I sat in somber silence, the doorbell rang. I knew in the pit of my stomach who it was, and a sense of dread washed over me. "Mark, can we come in?" Brian's voice called out, accompanied by Lisa's. Glancing at Sarah, I saw the pain and conflict etched across her features. Nodding, I opened the door, bracing myself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. "What are you two doing here?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "Sarah, we need to talk," Lisa said, her eyes pleading. "Please, can we come in?" Reluctantly, Sarah stepped aside, and the two of them entered our living room, the tension in the air palpable. "How could you do this to me?" Sarah demanded, her gaze switching between Brian and Lisa. "Thought you were my best friend, Lisa. And you, Brian. I trusted you." Brian shifted uncomfortably, his eyes downcast. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. It just happened. It wasn't planned, and it's tearing me apart." Lisa reached out to touch Sarah's arm, but Sarah recoiled, her expression hardening. "Don't you dare touch me," she spat, her voice laced with venom. "Both of you, just stay away from me." I could see the pain and desperation in their faces, but I knew that Sarah needed to have her say. This betrayal was unforgivable, and I could only imagine the depth of her anguish. "We never meant to hurt you, Sarah," Lisa pleaded, her voice trembling. It just happened. We never wanted this to happen." "Well, it did happen," Sarah retorted, her eyes brimming with tears. "And now I have to pick up the pieces of my life because of your selfish actions." Brian stepped forward, his expression one of genuine remorse. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I know there's nothing I can say to make this right. But please, let us try to make amends. We want to make this right." Sarah let out a mirthless laugh, the sound hollow and devoid of any warmth. "Make it right? How exactly do you plan on doing that? By continuing to lie and deceive me?" The confrontation continued, with both Lisa and Brian pleading for forgiveness, while Sarah remained steadfast in her refusal to accept their apologies. I watched helplessly, my heart breaking for the woman I loved, as she grappled with the devastating betrayal of her closest friend and her husband. In the end, the conversation ended with Sarah demanding that they leave, her voice laced with a finality that left no room for negotiation. As the door closed behind them, she crumpled into my arms, her body racked with sobs. In that moment, I knew that our lives had been irrevocably changed, and that the road ahead would be filled with pain, uncertainty, and the daunting task of rebuilding the trust that had been so callously shattered. The weeks that followed the confrontation with Brian and Lisa were a blur of pain, uncertainty, and the arduous process of piecing our lives back together. Sarah had been absolutely devastated, and I struggled to find the right words to comfort her as she grappled with the weight of the betrayal. One evening, as we sat in our living room, surrounded by the remnants of a half-finished bottle of wine, Sarah finally broke the silence. "Mark, I don't know if I can do this anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned to her, my heart itching at the sight of the woman I loved in such a state of distress. "What do you mean, Sarah?" asked, gently taking her hand in mine. "I mean this." She gestured around the room, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Us, our life. How can I ever trust anyone again after what Lisa and Brian did to me?" I squeezed her hand reassuringly, desperate to find the right words to alleviate her pain. "Sarah, I know this has been unimaginably hard, but I'm here for you, no matter what," I said, my voice low and soothing. "We'll get through this together." She looked up at me, her expression reflecting a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "I want to believe that, Mark. I really do," she said, her voice trembling. "But sometimes I look at you and I can't help but wonder if you'll end up betraying me too." The words stung, but I knew that they came from a place of deep-seated hurt and doubt. Shifting closer to her, I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I would never, ever do that to you, Sarah," I said, my voice firm and resolute. "You are the most important person in my life, and I'm going to do everything in my power to rebuild that trust, no matter how long it takes." Sarah leaned into me, her body shaking with silent sobs. I held her, whispering words of comfort and reassurance, determined to be the rock she could lean on during this tumultuous time. As the minutes ticked by, I felt Sarah's posture begin to relax, the tension slowly ebbing from her frame. "Thank you, Mark," she said, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Pressed a gentle kiss to the top of her head, my heart swelling with love and a renewed sense of purpose. "You'll never have to find out, Sarah," I replied, my voice filled with conviction. "We're in this together, no matter what." In the days that followed, Sarah and I worked tirelessly to confront the aftermath of Lisa and Brian's betrayal. It was a long and arduous process, But with each passing day, I could see the glimmer of hope returning to Sarah's eyes. Though the scars would likely never fully heal, I was determined to help her rebuild a life filled with trust, love, and the promise of a brighter future. As the months passed, Sarah and I slowly but surely began to rebuild our lives in the aftermath of the betrayal. It was a long and arduous process, filled with moments of doubt, pain, and uncertainty, but with each passing day, I could see the glimmer of hope returning to Sarah's eyes. One evening, as we sat on our balcony, gazing out at the city skyline, Sarah turned to me, a tentative smile playing on her lips. "You know, Mark, I never thought I'd say this, but I think I'm finally starting to feel whole again," she said, her voice soft and contemplative. I reached out and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. You've been through so much, but you've come out the other side stronger than ever." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It hasn't been easy, that's for sure, but having you by my side, every step of the way, has made all the difference." I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her, and she nestled her head against my chest, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "Do you ever wonder what the future holds for us?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "All the time," I admitted, my own mind swirling with possibilities. "But I know that whatever comes our way, we'll face it together." Sarah lifted her head, her eyes shining with a newfound resolve. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear," she said, a smile spreading across her face. In that moment, I knew that we had weathered the storm, and that our relationship had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. The pain of the past may have etched scars on our hearts, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond between us. As we sat there, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I couldn't help but wonder about the lessons we had learned and the ways in which our lives had been forever changed. What does it truly mean to rebuild trust and find happiness after such a devastating betrayal? How do we move forward, knowing that our lives will never be the same? These were the questions that lingered in the back of my mind, a reminder that the journey toward healing and self-discovery is never truly over. But in that moment, with Sarah by my side, I knew that we were ready to take on whatever the future had in store. Together, we would continue to navigate the ups and downs, the triumphs and the challenges, and emerge even stronger, our love and commitment to one another as unwavering as the city skyline that stretched out before us. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel, give us a like, share our story. I'll see you soon with another captivating story.